right, we're still at Mosaic's conference. This is a colored commentary and threaded engagement with Mosaic. Mosaic's conference 2025. We're just really sitting down and talking to leaders, seeing what kind of resources we can give to you, to folks who are trying to do this work about multicultural, multi-ethnic church building, engaging the conversation of reconciliation, unity, justice. And we recognize that as leaders kind of go down this route that everybody has a different journey. And what we have to recognize is that there are a lot of costs to this, but there are a lot of really great, wonderful things that come out of this. And so we've got one of our threaded folks here, Keith Hileman. Most of the time, if you're a color commentary person, you've probably heard us mention Keith, but you don't really get to see Keith very often.
There's a reason for that.
Well, but he's here, and Keith does a lot of work, a lot of stuff. If you're dealing with the curriculum and things of that nature, you're going to see a lot of Keith stuff behind that. Just stuff that we do, period. He's in Cleveland, so we've got an outpost in Cleveland, Threaded CLE, and he's our direct contact out there, organizing and engaging churches out there. And Keith, I just want people just to hear a little bit, because there are folks who are new to this conversation, folks that are in the middle of this, and folks who are still journeying on, right? And so, just in a quick nutshell, if you will, help the audience understand from a leadership standpoint kind of what your journey has been to get here right now.
Yeah. It's all about you, Marcus. No, I learned from college in a calling to ministry at an Urbana conference.
Oh, okay.
That I had a desire, a delight, a movement towards missions. I didn't realize at the time that it was more about running away from my background than it was necessarily
running to something.
Yeah, to something. But yeah. I still had this fascination with diversity, something very different than kind of the meat and potatoes, bland
rural
central
Pennsylvania,
right? And so through seminary, God continued to shape that. And after seminary, I started doing a lot of work in reconciliation work as a certified Christian conciliator. And doing work internationally in missions. And then I met you out of kind of shared work or interest in connecting with our city, Richardson, and interfaith work. And you were like, I think that work in reconciliation would be valuable in this space of racial reconciliation. And I kind of thought, yeah, it could be, but I'm too busy and it sounds like a foreign language I'm not ready to learn yet.
Yeah.
And part of it I realized, just my upbringing, and then what evangelicalism, particularly majority culture evangelicalism, was for me, that I had the luxury to not have to think about social identity or a culture. It was just individual. And then 2016, the racially motivated shooting of a Dallas police officer at a Black Lives Matter.
The 5 police officers, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And I remember having connected with you multiple times, and you had invited me to a kind of a round table or gathering of pastors, and I said, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And that happened, and I remember calling you saying, look, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And I think you were generous, but probably had a smirk about it too. It's like, well, are you ready now?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I joined with those pastors, I was like, okay, they're here to learn. There's honesty, and I quickly stepped in it. Like I just by language I was using that was completely culturally insensitive, unaware of so many things, but the people at the table were so generous and gracious with me, which launched a rapid kind of learning, a desire to learn more. And of course that continued to grow as Threaded then continued to grow. And I was leading a church in Richardson at the time. And our desire now was to see the diversity of our surrounding neighborhood reflected in our church. It was starting to happen.
Yeah.
Couldn't be more thrilled about what God was doing in me,
yeah,
now reflected in the congregation. And then recognizing that I continue to make mistakes and scare people off, and their cost, all of that.
Yeah,
that's how I got here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think about, you were leading that church.
Yeah.
And you started to have these conversations. How did the church respond to the work of what God was doing inside of you, and then and seeing what's doing inside your community as well?
Yeah, fascinating story. I was spending a lot more time in Africa, partnering with a ministry, training pastors in Africa, and come back as a senior pastor and tell all these stories. And people were like, yay. I'd even tell stories from the pulpit of the work I'm growing in with Threaded and racial reconciliation. Okay.
Yeah.
And then one year, we started off the year by leaning into the church's values, and one of the stated values was peace through reconciliation. And I wanted to look at like different dynamics of the work of reconciliation. And the first sermon in that series at the beginning of the year was an introduction to racial reconciliation. And I invited you and several others from Threaded to do a panel discussion.
Right.
It was phenomenal.
I agree. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal.
And 2 families left the church that day. They're like, what? We've been talking about reconciliation.
I know. It's like,
peacemaking was a cultural value in our church.
Right.
But the shift from peacemaking, which is individual conflict, which at times I think is like, I'm just going to smile and overlook things versus really embrace what the work of reconciliation would require. But as soon as you connect the dots to cultural conflict, it's just like the fears skyrocket and oh no, we can't handle this. Yeah. Out the door.
And so, did you stop at that point?
No.
Okay.
No. And I was talking to somebody yesterday about this. Let me share a different story and I'll come back to it.
All right.
I've done lots of journey groups since, helped churches get...
Journey groups, these are the curriculum that we created. It's called The Journey, and we create these small groups where people from different cultures and backgrounds can come together and start to engage, learn from each other, and learn what God has to say about reconciliation.
Yeah, so I was even launching some in Cleveland, the Presbyterian church I was serving at the time, and one of my favorite memories is at the end of one of those groups. This dear friend of mine was 80-some years old at the time, and he stood up at an elders meeting with the church. He said, my journey experience was so powerful. I learned that the multi-ethnic church is the real church, and sat down. It's like, talk about the ultimate mic drop.
Right.
My point on that is, once you experience what is true eternally now, you can't go back.
Yeah. It's hard to unsee it and hard to not.
Yeah.
It's hard to not go forward.
So to your question, it was like, yes, I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
Because it is so joyful to be able to encounter different cultures and different people, and to be open to see a bigger view of God, which just stirs greater grace and joy in my life. And I hope that's reflected in how I interact with others. But I mean, that's enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how is that? I'm thinking about it as leaders who are listening, right, and they're watching. How did this move to stay with this?
Yeah.
How did that affect your ministry? Were you able to? I mean, was it smooth sailing? Problems like so. What are some of the I know the story, so what are some of the help us see what some of the repercussions and the costs that come with doing this, right? Like you've been indoctrinated, like you're feeling the move of God to do it. You're trying to do it in your church, and yet that doesn't mean everybody else goes with you.
No, I think you could expect folks to blame. Like, this is an aside, but I used to mentor a lot of seminary students, my church in Dallas, and I used to always get to a conversation where it's like, to be called as a pastor is to hang on a cross in front of people.
Okay.
Who instead of being able to direct their frustration, grief, and anger in the world to God, they're going to take it to you first. I mean, Jesus said, don't be surprised the world hates you. They hated me first. That is a pastoral calling. I think in a pastoral calling that includes the courageous work of moving towards a multi-ethnic reality, that is definitely true.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of blame shifting, especially in fragile contexts where I was working with one church that kind of had a sermon series and a couple of classes to help prepare the church for a multi-ethnic church plant. And anybody that was frustrated by that or afraid of that ended up blaming me and the association with Threaded for that. And I just looked at it as like, okay,
yeah,
you're missing out. So part of the mindset you need to take on is like, this is true. I'm not going to turn away from it. And what God has in front of me is greater than what I'm experiencing right now. It doesn't mean you're callous now about
Sure.
the grief and the fragility that people have, but there's a sense that you. Yeah, thanks, Keon. There's a sense that you're not going to go backwards. You're going to keep moving forward, and you're going to invite people. And honestly, I think one of the resources that you helped or you created for Threaded, which is the assessment, a readiness assessment for churches, really puts that out practically. You can see in a church, where are they in terms of readiness? Take the next step wherever it is. And as a pastor, you got to say, if this is the thing that God has called all of us to, and has called me to, what is my context and what's the next step I need to take?
Yeah. And that's a really big piece. And I love kind of putting that assessment together and really trying to help people see it, because I think it may help, perhaps, stifle some of the repercussions of this work for those who pursue it. I mean, you and I are here, we've lost jobs in this. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's what I do.
You know what I'm saying? Right. But what you said, though, I think is really good, right? Because there is a cost to this. And you can't, we said this in our workshop yesterday, right? Like, obedience comes with a cost, right? But there's something else on the other side that may be better. Right, I remember 4 years ago when I lost my job at the church I was working at, and I was flat broke and had no support and had no. Threaded was, although we existed, we didn't exist to support an executive director, and I would be sitting in my bed or laying in my bed in the middle of the night, like praying do not worry about your life, what you should eat, what you should drink, what you should wear, for the Heavenly Father knows that you need Him, right? And all that kind of stuff.
How long did that last?
It lasted. I'm still doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, still doing every night. But I look back and I see where we are now, 4 years later, and I'm just like, man, God is really good, and what a great, wonderful thing. Have you experienced that? I mean, where were you, and then how are you experiencing this now, even for yourself today?
Yeah. Part of my vision or my understanding of what lasting transformation requires, it's a vision of the future that is worth the pain of transformation. And part of that is grounding into the vision of what the future kingdom would be, that I realized by the Spirit at work in myself and brothers and sisters in Christ, is that it is a thrilling vision. That I ground into that. I can ground also into the growth personally that I've experienced, as well as the friendships I have with folks that I otherwise wouldn't have friendships with.
Yeah.
And I just think I want more of that. And I just believe firmly that pleases God. That keeps me moving.
So would you say that the work has been worth it thus far?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Even in the midst of all that you've gone through?
Oh, yes.
All the pain?
Yes.
Because I've been there for all those pains.
Yeah. I think I'm not in it for one day saying, well done, faithful servant, although I hope to hear that just by virtue of faithfulness. I'm not in it to say, hey, I got here first, it's about time you got here. But I'm in it because I think everybody's moving that direction. That's Dave Wildermuth. That's the real church. I want to be a part of it. He realized that at 85 years old. Yeah. I want everybody to come to realize that in whatever timeline they're willing to have an open heart to where the Spirit's moving. But I don't think it's a different direction. I think it's always that direction.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Good. It's good to talk. Good to hang out.
Yeah.
And hear it. I think a lot of folks, if you're a pastor out there, a leader out there, the tough times are going to come. And we have to keep this in mind, that it's good to hear stories about people on the other side of the name calling, the blame shifting, all those things that happen, and they can say it's worth it.
Maybe one of the theme to it is like, you have to have a vision that's worth the pain of transformation. But you also have to be skilled, particularly from a majority context leadership, to know how to lead appropriately. And I think that is by grounding into a vulnerability and a humility that is wanting to learn from others and is not afraid to own mistakes and confess regularly. Yeah. And I think the Lord was preparing me for this work in part through years of therapy and working on my own stuff, and realizing now it's like, if you can show up humbly before somebody who's different than you, you are clearing the table for a conversation and a relationship that can be very, very different than just being polite in a multi-ethnic environment.
Yeah, that's really good. Good word, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for being hanging out, coming. I know you're usually behind the scenes, so thanks for jumping in with
Oh,
us,
yeah,
the space here.
Yeah.